The conference room fell silent as Trump leaned into his microphone, that familiar smirk playing across his face. "Sweetie," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You're what, 40? 42? You're too young to understand how these programs actually work. Social Security, Medicare, these are complex systems. Why don't you sit down and let the adults who have actually built businesses talk about fiscal responsibility?" A few supporters in the crowd chuckled. Some seniors nodded. Trump sat back, arms crossed, satisfied. Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. She didn't raise her voice. She simply opened the binder in front of her with deliberate slowness, the sound of pages turning cutting through the silence. "Mr. Trump," she said, her voice level and cold. "I'm 43 years old. I'm a civil rights attorney. I'm a member of the United States Congress, and I've read every single one of your budget proposals from 2017 to 2021. She looked up, her eyes locked on his. "Have you?" Trump's smirk faltered. "I know what's in your 2020 budget," she continued. She lifted a document, holding it up so the cameras could see. Page 64. Social Security Disability Insurance. You proposed cutting $184 billion over 10 years. She placed it down, lifted another. Your 2019 budget, page 112. Medicare, $845 billion in cuts over a decade. Another document. Your 2018 budget, Social Security, $72 billion in cuts. She stacked them on the table one after another, each landing with a soft thud that echoed in the silent room. "Should I continue? I have 4 more years' worth." Trump shifted in his seat. Those are proposals. Washington budget talk. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." She opened her binder to a marked page. "Because here's what you told seniors in 2016. Your exact words, 'I will protect and save your Social Security and your Medicare.' You made a deal a long time ago." She looked up at the audience, row of seniors, many wearing red hats, many who'd voted for him twice. "But here's what you didn't tell them." She projected an image on the screen behind her, a tweet, his tweet from March 2020. "We'll be cutting entitlements after the election." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Trump lunged forward. "That's out of context. I was talking about waste and fraud." "Were you?" Crockett's voice remained unnervingly calm. "Because your own budget director, Mick Mulvaney, called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Your own appointees, Russell Vought, Rick Perry, all wanted to privatize it. Project 2025, written by your advisors, proposes raising the retirement age to 69 and cutting benefits for anyone making over $140,000 a year." She paused, letting it sink in. "So when you called me sweetie and said I don't understand these programs," she leaned forward, "I understand them perfectly. I understand you promised to protect them while simultaneously trying to gut them. I understand you gave $1.9 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires, 83% went to the top 1%, then claimed we can't afford Social Security." Her voice dropped lower, harder. "What I don't understand, Mr. Trump, is why you think these people are stupid enough to keep believing you." The room erupted, shouts from both sides. Trump's face reddened, veins visible at his temples. "Now wait just a..." Crockett didn't raise her voice, but something in her tone cut through the chaos. "You called me sweetie. You questioned my intelligence. You insulted me in front of these people. So now we're going to have the conversation you wanted to avoid." She turned to the audience. "How many of you depend on Social Security for at least half your income?" Slowly, hands went up. More than half the room. "How many would struggle to afford health care without Medicare?" More hands. Even some of the Trump supporters. "Then you deserve to know the truth about what this man has planned for you." She looked back at Trump. "And unlike you, I brought receipts." She gestured to her aide, who wheeled in a cart stacked with binders. "4 years of budget proposals, 12 years of your statements on entitlements, documentation from every advisor you've ever appointed on this issue." She paused for effect. "And 4 real people from red districts, Trump districts, who are about to tell you exactly how your policies hurt them." Trump stood, jabbing his finger toward her. "This is an ambush. This is a setup. No, Mr. Trump, Crockett remained seated, utterly composed. This is accountability, something you've never experienced. She opened the first binder. Let's begin with 2017, your first budget. Do you want to tell these seniors what you proposed, or should I? The moderator, a local news anchor who had been trying to maintain control, cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should. No. Trump's voice was sharp. Let her talk. Let her show everyone what a fraud she is. Go ahead, Congresswoman. Do your little presentation. He thought he was calling her bluff. The confidence was returning to his voice. Crockett smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Trump. I will. She stood, and the screen behind her flickered to life. A spreadsheet appeared, color-coded, meticulously organized. Your 2017 budget, she began. Your first year in office. You told seniors you'd protect their benefits. But page 45 of your budget proposed converting Medicare to a premium support system, essentially a voucher program. The Congressional Budget Office estimated this would increase out-of-pocket costs for seniors by an average of $16,400 per year. The screen changed. A video clip began to play, Trump at a rally in Florida, 2016. Hillary wants to cut your Social Security and Medicare. I'm going to save it. Nobody's going to touch it. The crowd in the room watched silently. The crowd in the video cheered. Crockett let it play, then stopped it. That was your promise, she said. Here was your budget. The screen split, on one side, Trump's campaign promise, on the other, a highlighted section of his 2017 budget. Medicare reforms to reduce spending by $554 billion over 10 years. $554 billion. Mr. Trump, that's not waste and fraud. That's benefits. Trump's jaw clenched. We were modernizing the system, making it more efficient. By making seniors pay more. Crockett didn't let him finish. Your budget specifically proposed increasing Medicare premiums for middle-income seniors. Someone making $85,000 a year, a teacher with a decent pension, maybe, would see their Medicare Part B premiums increase by 35%. She clicked to the next slide. Your 2018 budget, even more aggressive. You proposed raising the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 67. Do you know what that means for someone who retires at 65? She didn't wait for him to answer. It means 2 years of paying for private insurance. The average cost for a 65-year-old, about $11,200 per year. That's $22,400 they'd have to pay out of pocket, money they don't have, while waiting to access a program they've paid into their entire lives. A woman in the audience, maybe 70, raised her hand. The moderator nodded to her. I retired at 65, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I couldn't have afforded 2 more years of private insurance. I would have had to keep working. Crockett nodded to her. And that's exactly the point. These aren't just numbers on a page. These are real lives. Trump leaned forward. We have to make tough choices. The programs are going bankrupt. Everyone knows. They're not going bankrupt. Crockett's voice cut like a blade. Social Security has a $2.7 trillion trust fund. It can pay full benefits until 2034. And the fix is simple, remove the payroll tax cap. Right now, someone making $160,000 pays the same amount into Social Security as someone making $160 million. If we make the wealthy pay their fair share, Social Security is solvent for 75 years. She paused, then added quietly, but that would cost you money, wouldn't it, Mr. Trump? His face reddened. I pay millions in taxes. Do you? She clicked again. A New York Times article appeared on screen. Trump paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017. The room exploded, Trump supporters shouting that it was fake news, others shouting back that it was verified. The moderator tried desperately to restore order. Crockett waited. She was good at waiting. When the noise died down, she continued as if nothing had happened. $750, Mr. Trump, that's what you paid in federal income taxes the year you tried to cut $72 billion from Social Security. She turned to face the audience. How much did you pay that year? She asked the room. Anyone want to share? An older man in the third row, wearing a John Deere cap, stood up. I'm a retired farmer, he said. I paid $8,400 in federal taxes that year on my Social Security and a small pension. Crockett nodded. You paid 11 times more than a self-proclaimed billionaire. She turned back to Trump. And you want to lecture people about fiscal responsibility? Trump's hands were gripping the edge of the table. Those tax returns were under audit. You don't understand. I understand that you paid less in taxes than a farmer. I understand that you gave yourself and your wealthy friends a $1.9 trillion tax cut. I understand that 83% of that cut went to the top 1%. And I understand that after giving away $1.9 trillion to billionaires, you declared that we can't afford Social Security. She clicked to a new slide, a simple calculation. Trump tax cuts cost $1.9 trillion. Social Security shortfall, $2.0 trillion. You created the crisis, Mr. Trump. Then you blamed the program. Trump tried to pivot. It's what he always did when cornered. What about prescription drug prices? I lowered prescription drug prices more than any president in history. I saved seniors thousands. Did you? Crockett was ready for this. She'd been ready for all of it. A new slide appeared, a graph showing prescription drug prices from 2017 to 2021. Prescription drug prices rose every single year of your presidency. The average increase was 4.5% annually, for seniors on fixed incomes. That meant choosing between medication and food. She clicked again. A CNN interview appeared, Trump speaking, "We're going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices." The clip ended. Crockett looked at Trump. You said that in 2016. You said it in 2017. You said it in 2018. But you never did it. Do you know who finally passed Medicare drug price negotiation? She didn't wait for an answer. Democrats, in 2022, after you left office. The Inflation Reduction Act allows Medicare to negotiate prices on the most expensive drugs. It caps insulin at $35 a month. It caps out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 a year. All things you promised and never delivered. Trump's face was getting redder. We tried. The Democrats blocked. You had 2 years of Republican control of Congress, 2 years where you could have passed anything. But you didn't, because pharmaceutical companies donated $28 million to Republican campaigns during your presidency. She pulled out another document. Your own budget from 2019, page 78, you proposed cutting funding for the Low-Income Subsidy Program, the program that helps poor seniors afford their medications. The cut would have eliminated assistance for 2.3 million seniors. A man in the back stood up. He was older, maybe 80, wearing a veteran's cap. I'm on that program, he said. It covers most of my heart medication. Without it, I'd pay $600 a month out of pocket. His voice cracked. I get $1,200 a month in Social Security. After rent and food, I've got nothing left. Crockett nodded to him. What's your name, sir? James Patterson. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Thank you for your service, James. She turned to Trump. You were going to cut his medication assistance while giving tax cuts to billionaires. Trump stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly. That's not, you're twisting everything. We love our veterans. I gave them the biggest VA budget increase in history. Did you? Crockett's voice was dangerously quiet now. Should we talk about the VA budget? She didn't wait. Your 2020 budget proposed cutting VA healthcare by $4.5 billion. It proposed stricter eligibility requirements that would have kicked 250,000 veterans off VA healthcare. Veterans like James. James was still standing. Is that true? He asked, looking at Trump. You tried to cut my VA healthcare. Trump pointed at him. No, this is lies, fake news. Congress restored the cuts you proposed. Crockett cut him off. You proposed the cuts. Congress said no. Then you took credit for the funding they forced you to keep. She pulled up another document, Trump's signature clearly visible at the bottom. Your own budget request, Mr. Trump. Your signature. Your proposal to cut VA healthcare by $4.5 billion. The room was silent now. Even Trump's most ardent supporters were looking uncomfortable. James sat down slowly, shaking his head. Crockett pressed on. She wasn't done, not even close. Let's talk about Social Security Disability Insurance, the program that helps people who can't work due to disability. Your 2020 budget proposed the most aggressive cuts to SSDI in modern history. A new chart appeared on screen. You proposed cutting $84 billion from disability benefits over 10 years. Your plan included, 1. Stricter eligibility requirements that would disqualify 500,000 current recipients, 2. Mandatory reevaluations every 6 months designed to kick people off benefits, 3. Eliminating benefits for anyone who can work any job, even if that job doesn't exist in their area or pay a living wage, 4. Cutting benefits for anyone with more than $2,000 in assets, meaning if you save any money, you lose your disability check. She looked directly at Trump. Do you know who depends on SSDI? She clicked. Photos appeared on screen, coal miners with black lung disease, construction workers with destroyed backs, veterans with PTSD, cancer survivors. These aren't people gaming the system, Crockett continued. The average disability benefit is $1,358 a month, barely enough to survive. And you wanted to cut even that. Trump tried to interrupt. We were stopping fraud. Fraud accounts for less than 1% of disability claims. Crockett didn't even look at him. You weren't stopping fraud. You were punishing people for being disabled. A woman in the audience stood. She was younger than most in the room, maybe 50, but she moved stiffly, using a cane. I have multiple sclerosis, she said. I worked as a nurse for 25 years. I can't stand for long periods anymore. I can't work 12-hour shifts. I had to go on disability. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook slightly on her cane. I paid into the system for 25 years, every paycheck. And now I need it. And you wanted to take it away. She looked at Trump. I voted for you twice because you said you'd protect these programs. Trump opened his mouth, closed it. For once, he seemed at a loss. Crockett let the silence stretch. Her name is Betty Harrison. She's from West Virginia. Trump won her county by 39 points. She's one of your voters, Mr. Trump. And you tried to cut her benefits. She turned to the screen again. But it gets worse. Your administration didn't just propose cuts, you actually implemented some of them. In 2019, you changed the rules for disability evaluations. The new rules made it significantly harder to qualify. In the first year alone, denial rates increased by 8%. That's 45,000 people who were denied benefits they would have received under the old rules. Trump finally found his voice. We were making sure only truly disabled people got benefits. Betty is truly disabled, Crockett shot back. She has MS. Her immune system is attacking her nervous system. She can barely walk some days. Is she disabled enough for you? Betty was crying now. Others in the audience were comforting her. What about James? Crockett continued. Vietnam veteran, shrapnel still in his spine. Chronic pain. Is he disabled enough? What about coal miners with black lung? Are they disabled enough? What about veterans with PTSD? Are they disabled enough? Who decides, Mr. Trump, you, from your golf course in Mar-a-Lago? Her voice had risen just slightly, but the emotion behind it was cutting. These are real people with real disabilities who paid into the system, who worked hard their whole lives, who played by the rules. And when they needed help, you tried to take it away. Trump was sweating now. The room had turned. Even his supporters were quiet, listening, some looking troubled. He tried to change the subject again. We need to talk about the economy. I gave everyone tax cuts. The greatest economy ever. Everyone benefited. Let's talk about your tax cuts, Crockett said, relentless. Because this is where the real con happened. A new slide appeared, a simple breakdown. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, 2017. Total cost, $1.9 trillion. Top 1%, average benefit $151,000 per year. Bottom 20%, average benefit $140 per year. Senior on Social Security, average benefit $150 per year. $150 a year, Mr. Trump, that's what your tax cut for everyone gave to the average senior on Social Security. She let that sink in. But it gets worse, because those tax cuts, they weren't paid for. They added $1.9 trillion to the deficit. And what did Republicans say immediately after passing them? She clicked, a video clip of Mitch McConnell. We're going to have to address entitlement reform. Another clip, Paul Ryan. Social Security and Medicare are the real drivers of our debt. Another, Marco Rubio. We have to make tough choices on entitlements. Crockett stopped the video. You gave away $1.9 trillion, mostly to the wealthy. Then immediately started talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare to pay for it. She pulled up another chart. A senior making $30,000 a year from Social Security got about $150 from your tax cut. Meanwhile, someone making $1 million a year got $69,000. That's a 460-to-1 ratio. She looked at the audience. You gave a millionaire 460 times more than you gave a senior living on Social Security. Then you said, we can't afford Social Security. Trump was red-faced. No, that's not, the tax cuts helped everyone. They helped the wealthy, Mr. Trump. The top 1% got 83% of the benefit. And corporations, they got a massive tax cut from 35% to 21%. They promised they'd use it to raise wages and create jobs. Do you know what they actually did? She didn't wait. They spent $1 trillion on stock buybacks. They gave dividends to shareholders. They gave raises to CEOs. The average worker's wage increase, less than 2%, barely kept pace with inflation. Another slide appeared, a photo of Trump Tower. You personally benefited from those tax cuts by millions of dollars. Your real estate empire, your businesses, you saved millions. And then you proposed cutting Social Security. She leaned forward. You took from seniors who paid into the system their whole lives, and you gave to yourself and your wealthy friends. That's not tax reform, Mr. Trump. That's theft. The audience was murmuring now, louder, angrier. Trump stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and be accused. Sit down. Crockett's voice was ice. You called me sweetie. You questioned my intelligence. You insulted me. Now you're going to sit there and face the facts. For a moment, they locked eyes. Trump's face was purple with rage, but he sat. Crockett wasn't done. Your tax cuts expire in 2025, all of them. But you built in a clever trick, the cuts for individuals expire. The cuts for corporations, those are permanent. So working people will see their taxes go up, but corporations keep their lower rate forever. She shook her head. And you have the audacity to call yourself a champion of working people. Crockett straightened her papers. The room was absolutely silent. Now, I want to introduce you to 4 people, she said. For Americans from red districts, Trump districts, people who believed his promises. People who are now living with the consequences of his policies. She nodded to the back of the room. A side door opened. First, I'd like you to meet James Patterson. The elderly veteran who had spoken earlier walked slowly to the front. He moved with the careful deliberation of someone in constant pain. James stood at the microphone, his veteran's cap in his hands. My name is James Patterson, he said. His voice was steady but quiet. I'm 72 years old. I served in Vietnam from 1969 to 1971. I have a Purple Heart. He paused, gathering himself. I came home from Vietnam with shrapnel in my spine. They couldn't get it all out. I've lived with chronic pain for 53 years. After the war, I worked at a factory for 40 years of getting up every morning, going to work, paying my taxes, paying into Social Security. He looked at Trump. I voted for you, Mr. Trump, both times. You said you loved veterans. You said you'd take care of us. You said you'd never cut our benefits. His voice cracked slightly. I get $1,847 a month, that's my VA disability and my Social Security combined. After rent, utilities, and food, I have about $200 left each month for everything else, medication, clothes, everything. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. This is your 2020 budget, the one that proposed cutting VA healthcare by $4.5 billion, the one that proposed stricter eligibility for disability benefits. If those cuts had gone through, I'd have lost about $340 a month. He looked up, tears in his eyes. That's my medication money, that's my pain medication, my heart medication, my blood pressure medication. Without that, I don't know what I would have done. Trump started to speak. James, I'm not finished. James's voice was firm now. You wore a veteran's cap. You stood at rallies and talked about how much you loved us. You said you'd never let us down. He held up the budget document. But this says different. This says you were willing to cut my benefits. This says you were willing to make it harder for veterans to get disability. This says you were willing to cut my health care. He stepped closer to Trump. I took a bullet for this country. I have shrapnel in my spine. I worked 40 years despite the pain. And you were going to cut my benefits so you could give tax cuts to billionaires. His voice broke. I feel like a fool. I believed you. I defended you to my friends. And you were planning to cut my benefits the whole time. He turned to the audience. How many of you are veterans? Several hands went up. How many of you voted for him because he promised to take care of us? Most of the hands stayed up. He lied to us. He lied to all of us. James walked back to his seat, shoulders shaking. The room was dead silent. Crockett let the silence hold for a long moment. Then, thank you, James. She looked at Trump. Do you have anything to say to him? Trump's mouth opened and closed. We had to make difficult budget choices, but we always supported our veterans. You proposed cutting his benefits by $340 a month, Crockett said flatly. Yes or no? Did your 2020 budget propose those cuts? The budget process is complex. Yes or no? Trump's jaw clenched. The proposal was, yes, but it was never meant to. Thank you. Crockett cut him off. Let's meet our next guest. A woman in her late 60s walked to the microphone. She was small, thin, wearing a simple dress. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the podium. My name is Betty Harrison, she said. I'm 68 years old. I'm from McDowell County, West Virginia. Her voice was soft but clear. My husband, Tom, worked in the coal mines for 35 years. He started when he was 18, went down in those mines every day, breathing in coal dust, working in the dark. She pulled out a photo, held it up, a man in mining gear, smiling despite the coal dust on his face. He died 3 years ago. Black lung disease. His lungs were destroyed. He spent his last 2 years on oxygen, barely able to walk across the room. Tears were streaming down her face now, but she kept talking. We depended on his black lung benefits and his Social Security disability. After he died, I get survivor benefits. I get $1,200 a month. That's all I have. She looked at Trump. You came to West Virginia. You wore a miner's helmet. You promised to bring coal back. You promised to take care of coal miners. Her voice hardened. But your 2019 budget tried to cut the Black Lung Disability Trust Fund, the fund that pays benefits to miners like my Tom. You tried to eliminate automatic survivor benefits, the benefits I live on now. She held up a document. This is from your Department of Labor. In 2019, you stopped enforcing protections against coal dust exposure. You made it easier for companies to avoid safety regulations. More miners got sick. Betty's voice was shaking with anger now. My Tom gave his lungs for coal. He gave his life. And you tried to take away his death benefits. You wore a hard hat for a photo opportunity, but you didn't protect miners. You protected coal companies. Trump tried to interrupt. We fought for coal miners. You fought for coal companies. Betty's voice rose. You rolled back safety regulations so they could make more profit. You tried to cut the Black Lung Fund so they wouldn't have to pay into it. And when miners died, you tried to eliminate their widows' benefits. She was crying openly now. Do you know what it's like to watch someone suffocate? To watch their lungs fail bit by bit, day after day, to watch them struggle for every breath. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That was my Tom's last 2 years. And you wanted to take away even the small amount of money that his death provided for me. She looked out at the audience. My county voted for you by huge numbers. We believed you cared about coal miners. We believed you'd protect us. She looked back at Trump. You didn't. You protected the companies that killed my husband, and you tried to take away the benefits he died earning. Betty walked back to her seat, sobbing. Another woman put an arm around her. The room was silent except for her crying. Crockett waited. Then, Mr. Trump. Betty's husband worked 35 years in the coal mines. He died from black lung disease. You proposed cutting the fund that provides benefits to black lung victims and their survivors. Do you understand what that means? Trump's face was stony. The coal industry, not the... Betty, do you understand what it would have meant to Betty if you'd succeeded in cutting those benefits? It means she would have lost 1/3 of her income. It means she might have lost her home. It means she'd have to choose between food and medication. Crockett's voice was relentless. Her husband gave his lungs, literally gave his ability to breathe, for coal. And you tried to take away his widow's benefits. She let that hang in the air. Let's meet our third guest. A man in his early 70s, weathered and lean, approached the microphone. He wore clean jeans and a button-up shirt, but his hands were calloused. His face slanted from decades in the sun. Tom Willis, he said. Third-generation farmer, or I was, until I lost my farm. His voice was matter-of-fact, but there was deep pain beneath it. My grandfather bought our farm in 1899. My father worked it. I took over in 1975. 180 acres of good Iowa farmland. We grew soybeans and corn. He paused. In 2018, Mr. Trump started his trade war with China, tariffs on Chinese goods. China retaliated with tariffs on American soybeans. The price of soybeans collapsed, went from $10 a bushel to $7.50. He pulled out a calculator. I grew about 8,000 bushels a year. That's $20,000 in lost income in 1 year. I had loans to pay, equipment to maintain. I couldn't make the payments. His voice remained steady, but his hands gripped the podium. In 2019, I lost the farm. Bank foreclosed. 120 years of my family's work, gone. He looked at Trump. You said you'd fight for farmers. You said your tariffs would help us. They destroyed us. Farm bankruptcies went up 40% during your presidency. Trump started to speak. China was ripping us off. You ripped us off. Tom's voice rose. You started a trade war we couldn't win. China stopped buying our soybeans. You said they'd cave. They didn't. We paid the price. He pulled out another document. You gave out $28 billion in emergency farm aid. You know how much I got? $180. You know who got the most? Big corporate farms. The top 1% of farms got over half the money. His voice was bitter. I lost everything. Got $180. Corporate farms got millions. He took a breath. After I lost the farm, I had to take Social Security early. I was 62. I wanted to wait until full retirement age at 67, but I had no income, no choice. He looked at Crockett. Taking it early means I get about 30% less for the rest of my life. Instead of $1,800 a month, I get $1,260. That's a permanent reduction because of your trade war. He turned back to Trump. And now Project 2025, written by your advisors, your people, wants to raise the retirement age to 69. If that had been in effect, I'd have had to wait 7 more years, 7 years with no income. I'd have lost everything again. Tom's voice cracked. You destroyed my farm with your tariffs, forced me to take reduced Social Security, and now you want to make it even harder for people like me. He shook his head. I voted for you twice. I believed you when you said you'd fight for farmers. But you didn't fight for me. You fought for big agribusiness, for corporate farms, for your wealthy friends. He looked at the audience. How many farmers here lost money because of his tariffs? Several hands went up. How many had to take emergency loans? More hands. How many thought about giving up? Almost all the hands stayed up. He said he'd make agriculture great again. He nearly destroyed us. Tom walked back to his seat. Crockett waited a beat. Then, Mr. Trump, farm bankruptcies increased 40% during your presidency. Tom lost a 120-year-old family farm because of your trade policies. Then he had to take reduced Social Security benefits for life. And Project 2025 proposes raising the retirement age even higher. Do you understand the chain reaction of harm your policies caused? Trump's face was red. The tariffs were necessary. Necessary for what? To bankrupt family farmers? To force seniors to take reduced benefits? China didn't lose their farms. Tom did. Crockett's voice was cold. Let's meet our final guest. A woman in her mid-60s, Hispanic, walked to the microphone with quiet dignity. She wore slacks and a simple blouse. Her gray hair pulled back neatly. Maria Santos, she said. I'm 66 years old. I worked at an auto parts factory in Michigan for 45 years. Her accent was slight, her English precise. I started on the line when I was 21 to 45 years. Every day, every paycheck, I paid into Social Security. I paid my taxes. I did everything right. She pulled out a pay stub, old and yellowed. This is from my first paycheck in 1979. See here, Social Security tax, $14.73. Every paycheck for 45 years, I paid in. She looked at Trump. In 2020, our plant closed. The company filed for bankruptcy. Our pension fund was underfunded. I was supposed to get $1,800 a month from my pension. After bankruptcy, I get $720. Her voice hardened. That's it, 60% gone. 45 years of work, and my pension was cut by 60%. She held up another document. This is the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation report, the agency that's supposed to protect pensions when companies go bankrupt. During your presidency, it became underfunded by $48 billion. She looked at him directly. You know what you did. Your administration tried to make it easier for companies to underfund their pensions. You rolled back protections. You made it easier for companies to declare bankruptcy and raid pension funds. Maria's voice was shaking with controlled anger. I worked 45 years. I wasn't a CEO. I wasn't rich. I was on the line, doing the work, making the parts. And when the company failed, they took my pension. She pulled out another paper. Now I depend on Social Security. I get $1,200 a month. With my reduced pension, I get $1,920 total. That's what 45 years of work gave me. She leaned forward. And you wanted to cut Social Security. Your budget's proposed cutting it every year. Project 2025 wants to cut benefits for anyone making over $40,000 a year, that's people with small pensions like mine. Her voice rose. I paid in for 45 years, every paycheck. And you wanted to cut my benefits. Trump tried to speak. We were trying to save the system. By cutting benefits for workers like me while giving tax cuts to billionaires. Maria's eyes were blazing. I paid into the system. I earned those benefits. They're not handouts. They're not entitlements. They are my money, money I worked for, money I paid in. She looked at the audience. How many of you worked 40, 50 years? How many paid into Social Security every single paycheck? Nearly every hand went up. That's your money. You earned it. And he wants to cut it. She turned back to Trump. You said you'd bring manufacturing back. My plant closed. You said you'd protect pensions. Mine was cut by 60%. You said you'd never touch Social Security. You tried to cut it every year. Her voice dropped, became deadly serious. I came to this country when I was 15. I learned English. I worked hard. I paid my taxes. I did everything America asked of me. And you want to take away the benefits I earned? She shook her head. No. You don't get to do that, not to me, not to anyone who worked as hard as I did. Maria walked back to her seat, her head held high. The room was absolutely silent. Even Trump's most loyal supporters looked shaken. Crockett stood again. 4 people, she said quietly. 4 Americans, all from Trump districts. All worked their entire lives. All paid into Social Security. All believed his promises. She looked at each of them. James, the veteran with shrapnel in his spine, who you tried to cut VA benefits for. Betty, the coal miner's widow whose husband gave his lungs for coal, and you tried to eliminate her survivor benefits. Tom, the 3rd-generation farmer who lost his family farm because of your trade war, then had to take reduced Social Security. Maria, who worked 45 years, lost 60% of her pension under your administration, and now depends on Social Security that you wanted to cut. She turned to Trump. These are your voters, Mr. Trump.